They actually had a 24-hour fast, and what they found is that they had a 5 times greater level of human growth hormone. L-arginine is really important because what it does is it significantly increases nitric oxide, which also stimulates the release of growth hormone. Now, if you don't want to have better energy and better exercise capacity, by the way, it helps with glucose utilization. You'll see insulin sensitivity go through the roof. You'll recover faster. Helps with wound healing, heart protection, stops telomere attrition, and activates stem cells. It repairs nerve damage. Great for cognition, memory, cardiovascular capacity, endurance. So if you're not interested in those things, then I would not recommend this peptide at all.
All right, welcome everybody to the Health Accelerator Challenges. This is your host, Kate Archibald, and really excited to be here with everybody. I got Reagan Archibald here with me, as usual. How's it going, Reagan?
Good. Yeah, going really, really well.
Awesome. Well, last week we talked about some really cool growth hormone peptides and really some really cool stuff. Let's see. What was the challenge last week, Reagan?
Last week was we encouraged everyone to find an activity or something that you could do to stimulate your body's own growth hormone. So we talked about like squats, sprints. Yeah, like HIIT, in some studies, like it increases growth hormone by like 500%. Going to bed early is a growth hormone stimulant. Before midnight is when you get the biggest benefits from growth hormone. So what did you guys choose? Did any of you get some growth hormone on? And then obviously there's other great ways like, we're going to talk about Testamorelin, CJC, Sermorelin. We talked about MK677. So that was, and Butamorelin last week as well. And so we're going to keep on the growth hormone bend for just a little bit, because the more I uncover about this hormone, the more fascinating it becomes. And then you see just so many benefits that can come into your life. And so,
Awesome. Well, type into the chat box how your challenge went. I got some good HIIT workouts and got some good doses of CJC and Tesmarelin. Kind of alternating those. I've been stealing some of Sierra's peptides.
Nice. Sure, she appreciates that, kid.
Well,
whatever works. I mean, don't crash. She's like, hey, I'm really, my program's not going as expected. Whoop.
Well, she's doing good. She's actually solid.
All right. Well, let's jump in. So we've got, I'm going to ask each one of you, if you looked at your overall health and you said, where am I today and where do I want to go? One of the most important things is you want to say, where are the blockages? What are the areas of my life that are depleted? And how do I know if I have growth hormone deficiency? And there's a couple really good tests that you can do. One is where you'll see many of you will run what's called IGF-1. And that IGF-1 gives us a really good look at everything that's going on in your body. But the other thing you can look at, if it's, thinking from more of a subjective terminology, is if you notice you don't recover very quickly, if you notice that you have, almost like a joint pain more frequently than you'd like, those are some of the symptoms. You'll also notice that your body mass can start to change. So I don't know if you've ever looked in the mirror and all of a sudden you're like, man, my whole body composition just changed. That's what happened to me in my early 20s, is my whole body composition had changed. And so it took a long time to get it back. and more from my thyroid than growth hormone, from what I know. But if you just start looking at it, growth hormone deficiency, the two biggest things is you're going to have more muscle pain and more joint degeneration. And so you're going to have a higher level of body fat, and it's going to accumulate, especially around the waist. We see a lot of people have higher levels of anxiety and depression. You'll notice decrease in sexual function and interest. You'll notice, fatigue, but it's a fatigue where you just don't feel like you've got like a second wind. Kay, do you know how when you're working out, you have another gear that you can always access, and sometimes you'll hit it, but most of the time you're just below that like 100% mark?
Yeah.
When you're depleted in growth hormone, that gap, that little extra reserve is just missing. And so then you start to see your workouts decline.
Interesting. Yeah. So if your growth hormone's optimized, then you're going to be able to push it a lot harder.
Yep, big time. And just think about how you feel. You love Tesamorelin, Ipamorelin, for example, but what kind of difference do you notice when you are working out when you're using some growth hormone peptides versus not?
Oh, like it's like any sort of weight, just you feel stronger. Like you can put up more weight, you can push harder. I feel like my endurance, like running, can handle longer distances a little easier. I'm definitely not the best runner, but like some good growth hormone releasing peptides help with that process for sure.
It's awesome. The other symptom, it's interesting because anxiety and depression is a common symptom of it, and it always goes missed. I had a client that her IGF-1, when we ran it, she had a ton of anxiety, and her IGF-1 was like 68 or something like that. And I just said, well, we're going to use some Selenk. And then I said, I think you're going to feel a lot better once we get this IGF level up. So we put her on CJC 1295 with Ipamorelin and IGF-1 with Epitalin and Selenk. And in like 30 days, she was like, I feel like a new person. It was awesome. And so that's a big one, but you'll notice that with lack of growth hormone, you'll feel isolated from other people. You won't feel quite as connected as you have historically. You'll also have a greater sensitivity to heat and cold. So the summers are going to be brutal, especially this summer, especially for those of you living in Florida. The ocean there is the bathtub warmth. It's like 101 is what they what I heard. So. And I know we have some Floridians on here. So, and I just, I spoke to one of our patients in Austin today, and he's like, there's no cold shower for me. He's like,
just can't get cold enough.
Everything's warm. But yeah, that sensitivity, then in the winter, they become brutal too. And so that's a sign of low growth hormone. You're going to have less body mass, which we talk lean body mass, and this is where if you haven't been into the clinic to do the STIQ, it's such an easy test. I mean, how long does it take to check your body fat percentage with the STIQ? It's like 3 minutes, if that. Yeah,
it was a few minutes. I was really impressed how fast that got it done. It's awesome.
Yeah, and you get a nice printout, and if you have your hair down in the back, it can make your neck look a little really thick. So
it looks a little awkward.
It looked like Shrek. The other thing with growth hormone, you'll notice that just stamina goes down, and one of the key signs is when you walk upstairs and your legs are already burning after about 10 steps. And so that's when reduced bone density. That's a big one. Tendency to have more fractures, and then changes in the makeup of blood cholesterol. So look at your blood cholesterol as well. And that can give you some pretty good indications. So Yeah. And the other thing is, if you think of too high, you remember last week I talked about what happens if you have too much growth hormone, and my favorite wrestler, Andre the Giant.
Yeah. And yeah, you just keep going. Your organs get too large, and it's no good if you overdo growth hormone, for sure.
Exactly. And so growth hormone, if you notice big fluctuations in it, one of the big risks that needs to be ruled out if growth hormone is really low, or especially if it's too high, is a pituitary tumor. And so sometimes you can have even a benign pituitary tumors can sometimes cause the secretion of excess growth hormone. And so I have a client of ours who, we started to see this. She had, she started really noticing like this, just, almost like muscle wasting. And so her growth hormone was actually being blocked by a brain tumor that was just sitting right against her pituitary, and it really impacted her vision and everything. And it was finally a migraine that got her the diagnosis that we needed. And so luckily she's doing great now, but not something to take lightly. So, but for those of us, looking to optimize your growth hormone, in my opinion, this is, it's one of the holy grails when it comes to longevity, is optimizing your growth hormone. And we're going to talk about Cade's favorite growth hormone today, which is Testamorellin. And for those of you who are on video, you can see some of the slides, but Testamorellin, it does stimulate the growth hormone releasing hormone cycles on the pituitary, and it doesn't significantly impact the other hormones in the body. So one of the things that you'll see a nice balancing of your thyroid hormone when growth hormone is optimized. But the other thing you'll see is you're going to notice benefits in lowering of triglycerides. We had one of our clients who had really high triglycerides, like in the 200s, and we reran his blood work today, and it's almost down to 50, which is amazing. And so, but part of that was the cycle of Testamorellin. The other thing that has been shown to do is decreases C-reactive protein, especially the highly sensitive C-reactive protein. And it also has amazing benefits for the brain as a nootropic. And Testamorellin was actually approved for dystrophy in HIV patients in a medication called Agrifta. So the beautiful thing about this, and they're using high doses for these patients, but this is when the HIV patients get a lot of adipose built up in their gut. And what they found is that the Agrifta or the Tesamorelin, and they did the clinical studies for about 2 years, they found that these patients all, for the most part, had a diminishing of the adipose tissue in their stomach and liver, and that visceral fat went away. And they also found fibrotic liver started to change. And so this one, typically what you want to do is, we will have you do anywhere from 5 days out of the week, or we'll do 21 days on and then take, a week off, but you can do 5 days on, 2 days off. There's multiple ways of doing this, but it's a really powerful treatment. And if you look at the difference between like Sermorelin, GRF, or CJC 1295, the biggest difference in the Testamorellin is it's a little better. It's at stabilizing the release of growth hormone more so than like Sermorelin. But Kate, I've been using Sermorelin a lot lately, and I've actually found it to be incredibly powerful. And so it's, and once again, it just like depends on the pathway that you want to work on. And it's the folding of these peptide structures that give the pulsatile effects of the growth hormone.
Interesting.
And what's been your experience with CJC 1295 versus like Testamorellin, and you haven't done much Sermorelin? I know I've given you some, but not a whole dose.
Yeah, I haven't done a lot of Sermorelin. So CJC 1295, what I do notice a lot different than Tesamorelin is the flush. That initial flush is like, and I really like that feeling. Some people hate it. But I really like it. It's kind of like exhilarating. Feels like a little boost of adrenaline or something. And so I like that. But then what I noticed, like result wise, Testamorellin, I definitely feel like my midsection trims down a little better when I'm using that versus CJC. That's kind of the biggest thing, but still feel like that same strength and like oomph that I do with Testamorellin with CJC. Nice.
Yeah, I do too. And in Sermorelin, I think the biggest one, surprisingly, is for sleep. I just haven't. I mean, Sermorelin just puts me right in the sweet spot. Probably the best, and so that's maybe one of my reasons why I'm actually turning into a fan really quickly. Testamorellin, here's some of the known benefits. Once again, this has gone through all 3 phases of clinical trials. We're compounding it. We always stack it with ipamorelin because you're going to get a greater pulse of growth hormone, and it's a somatostatin inhibitor. But Testamorellin, you'll see an increase of lean muscle mass, a decrease of fat loss. You're going to see decreased fat around the muscles. So when you go back to get like your DEXA scan or when you do a STIQ, you'll see just a massive change in the overall fat composition. You'll see a reversal or a correction of the non-alcoholic fatty liver disease or NASH, which is becoming so common. You'll see that it raises, there can be some increase in IGF-1. You're going to see it reduces triglycerides, it reduces visceral adipose tissue. And then one of the cool things, we have one of you, and I did we talked about your CIMT scan today, and that's the carotid artery, carotid intima medius size. And as you know, you're 48, but you tested as a 79-year-old. So, and he's just getting started, but he's going to be, Kate, our biggest, highest improvement, because I'm like, we're going to get you down to like your 30s by the time we're done with you. And he's already feeling great. He's lost like 20 pounds his first month.
Nice.
But that's one of the benefits of Testamorellin is they found that it did reduce the carotid intima media size. And so, and now we can, we have the ultrasound and we test that, but, big improvement. And then one of the big things they did is they took men who were over 60 who had some mild cognitive decline, and they found that it helped improve the mild cognitive decline. And Testamorellin also promotes deep sleep. So does it improve cognition because it improves sleep? Or, maybe that's part of it. I'm sure it is. But the other piece is, anytime you have an increase of IGF-1 is the gatekeeper, and it unlocks the gene that allows for the expression of BDNF. And BDNF is what allows us to have neuroplasticity, where our brain starts to change and we get easier associations. It almost remodulates all the neurotransmitters. So, otherwise, Testamorellin just really doesn't do much for the body. So I don't even know why we're talking about it. I mean, it's silly.
It doesn't do that much.
Who wants to reduce your carotid intima media size? I mean, what's the big deal? I mean, who cares if blood can't flow? I mean, that's call a plumber, for crying out loud. Yeah, it's funny. Dr. Wright, when he was at, we have a cardiologist in our group, and Dr. Wright was like, he's been a cardiac surgeon for like 30 years. And he's like, I'm done plumbing hearts. I do not want to plumb hearts anymore. I want to use peptides to help, reverse the disease. So it's really cool when you see on the other side that, there's really amazing cardiologists who are like really starting to adopt peptides. So we're seeing that in multiple dimensions. And so, but yeah, Testamorellin has been there. quite a while, but yeah, it's just, it's clinic like ours popularizing it. Here's what you can see in the changes in triglycerides from the studies that were performed. After 52 weeks, triglyceride levels dropped, almost 50%, which is pretty amazing. They've done some studies looking at bone density. Bone density improves, immune function improves. The way that growth hormone improves the immune function is if you have any kind of like chronic infection, or one of the hallmarks of aging is when you have cellular senescence, and it's immunosenescence is what it's called when your thymus gland starts to shrink. And so what peptides like Testamorellin can do is help wake that system back up. So it helps with the immune function really well. We've seen white blood cell counts start to come up from 4 back up to like 5.3, even in the 6s. Helps with sexual function, mood. Don't you notice, Kate, you just feel a little more light on your feet on the growth hormone peptides, just like happier?
Yeah, definitely have a much lighter disposition for sure.
Yeah, I love them. And that's where in our programs, you'll see that almost every single month we're working on this pathway, just making sure that it's optimized. Because if you think about the way that the universe tries to recycle us, I mean, after 40, our growth hormone just goes off a cliff. And that's when it's like, all right, buddy, your time is up. And so if you're not doing things on your own to increase growth hormone, the peptides alone will not get you there. You still have to exercise. You've got to lift heavy things. You've got to move your body in challenging ways, work on your balance, work on your agility, work on your speed, your power. All those things are really important. But if you add in some of these growth hormone releasing peptides, it's phenomenal at the amount of benefits you get from the exercise that you're doing and from the foods you're eating. It's crazy. It's ridiculous not to do it. The technology's there. And so, if you don't want to have better energy and better exercise capacity, oh yeah, by the way, it helps with glucose utilization. You'll see insulin sensitivity go through the roof. You'll recover faster. Helps with wound healing, heart protection, stops telomere attrition, and activates stem cells. It repairs nerve damage, great for cognition, memory, cardiovascular capacity, endurance. So if you're not interested in those things, then I would not recommend this peptide at all. Like, stay away from it. You'll just be way too supercharged of a human, and you'll just really regret it. Pretty amazing peptide. Muscle mass, decreased body fat. You can see.
That's what I'm going for there. I like that.
Well, you're on the right track. I mean, you're just slimming down. I mean, you got your body fat in the teens now.
Yeah,
so that is phenomenal. So, he's about at like 6% right there. Before it was about 20%, then he went down to 6%. So.
It's impressive.
Pretty amazing. So the other thing with Testamorellin is you'll see that we always stack it with ipamorelin. And so ipamorelin is a really powerful one because it stops what's called somatostatin. So you get about a 7 times greater pulse. And we had a question came through. Ryan, good to hear from you, man. What specifically can we do to help the peptide work? Lift heavy weights. What else? So let's jump into that in just in the last few minutes. So, and I'm going to bring up some studies, but Kate, maybe you can chime in on some of the ways that you love increasing growth hormone naturally.
Yeah. So naturally, specific exercises, HIIT workouts. I like with being on some of the growth hormone peptides. I love lifting weights. So like getting bigger gains, working different muscle groups, like legs, getting your quads activated and like your legs, those are like your biggest muscles. And so that's actually going to accelerate growth hormone throughout the body a lot more effectively than any other muscle group, just because it's so big. So really getting your legs activated, and then I hit workouts for just natural growth hormone. Hit sprints can be really effective as well. And so I always feel way better when I'm on some of these growth hormone peptides. With sprints, my recovery is faster. I can breathe afterwards a little much better. At least I can recover faster. Definitely get out of breath very quick. But that's what I got there.
And probably the biggest one for you, Ryan. Ryan's like a phenomenal rock climber.
Oh, nice.
So rock climbing is actually really good. So one of the easiest ways is being outside for 2 hours a day. Improves growth hormone, especially if you're out when the sun's rising and as the sun's setting. And then really getting good deep sleep. So going to bed at 9 o'clock is not just like, oh, go to bed early, wake up, go to bed late, early to bed, early to rise. You get healthy, wealthy, and wise. I think there's some real truth to that because you get more growth hormone. And so
sleep, big one.
Sleep is big. And so, Ryan, do you use a tracker using the Oura Ring, the Whoop for your sleep? Because that's seeing if you're getting you want to get at least an hour and a half of deep sleep a night to really optimize the growth hormone.
9 p.m.
Yeah. I guess we need to clarify. Yeah. But the other way that we can do it is fasting. And so this is interesting because if you think about Walter Longo's work, he's done work on longevity, but he's found that doing some mimicking fasting actually helps stem cells. And then stem cells also help improve growth hormone. And so there's one study where they found that fasting led to a pretty decent increase in HG, human growth hormone levels. They found that 47 people who, they actually had a 24-hour fast. And what they found is that they had a 5 times greater level of human growth hormone for 2 to 3 days after that 24-hour fast. So even just fasting, once a month or a couple times a month could be really helpful. If you overdo fasting and it puts stress on your body and you have cortisol, cortisol turns on somatostatin, which is the hormone that blocks growth hormone. So fasting is a really great way of doing it, but just do it right. So don't overdo it. But that's another way that you can naturally get some really good growth hormone rocking. Losing body fat is a really important, easy way to increase growth hormone. You can also use arginine. So L-arginine is one of my favorite, it's definitely my favorite for nitric oxide, but L-arginine is really important because what it does is it significantly increases nitric oxide, which also stimulates the release of growth hormone. Sugar is a killer for it. So reducing any sugar. And so Ryan, for you, that's just get rid of the desserts and you'll be really good. And then at night, you can also take a GABA supplement. GABA, I use GABA food every night because one of the studies that was done, I think it was about 10 years ago, what they found is that taking GABA led to a 400% increase when you went to sleep versus without taking GABA, and then you had another 200% increase following exercise. So not a lot of, it's not hard at all to take GABA, so could be really good. Go ahead.
Yeah, another question coming: is fasting good for someone who will be working hard to reverse sarcopenia?
Yeah, and so this is where the sarcopenia, fasting can lead to accelerated levels. So this is where fasting in certain people. We don't recommend it. When you're younger, your body does a lot better with it. But yeah, reversing sarcopenia, and that's where adding like the sarcotropin, that peptide blend is really nice because it does have L-arginine, L-citrulline, L-leucine, and then it's got the GHRP1 or GHRP2, GHRP6, and ipamorelin, and then DMAO, and then it's got D3 and K2. So it probably not, Allison, as far as sarcopenia goes. So yeah, there's a trade-off, and there's a different time and different phases in life when fasting's great. And so what's easier is as we age, it's much easier to fast, but it's also when we have this loss of proteostasis. And so we find that more people are malnourished than anything. And then Ryan asks, if you do a 24-hour fast, you skip all the supplements and peptides that day, or just do them without food? Ryan, you'll have to definitely. Yeah, great question. You just want to make sure you stay hydrated, and you can still do your supplements. That would be the preferred method. And absolutely do your peptides. And what you can do is you can actually stack your growth hormone peptides. So if you've got Testamorelin or CJC1295, you can do it in the morning and then do it before bed, or you can even do it midday. And that's just kind of like a little nuance that you can do to really start jamming it. But yeah, awesome question.
Very cool. Got some really cool questions. That was some rad stuff.
Yeah, well, it's always helpful when there's questions because then it's not just a monologue. Yeah, so thank you, Ryan and Allison. We really appreciate you guys both. Been awesome. So the challenge, biggest challenge that we're going to go is it's summertime. So we're going to just go back on that sleep. But we're gonna challenge everybody to get 2 hours of sleep before midnight, and see if you can do it every day for the next 7 days. 2 hours of sleep before midnight, so you can institute some better growth hormone.
So minimum time for bed is 10. Like you're asleep by 10, so you're in bed 9:30.
Yep, sleep by 10. You guys can do it.
Awesome, love it. Well, thank you guys. We will see you back next time. Awesome content as always, Reagan. Thank you very much.
Got it.
See everybody.
Bye-bye.